Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi.
Okay, we're looking around. This is the 77 WABC minicast.
So not everything in the Washington Post is bad. Let me lead with that. We discovered Marc Thiessen, who was a former White House chief speechwriter during a Republican administration. I think it was George W. Bush, if I'm not mistaken, Mark. And he's a Washington Post columnist, and he's a Fox News contributor. And he's been spot on during this Iranian war, so we welcome Marc Thiessen to the show. And let me start, Mark, with Trump is 14 days from decisive victory in Iran. But the key point here is, and by the way, General Keane agrees with you. He was my lead guest today. The blockade is great, and the whole economic fury with Scott Bessent, Treasury man, is great, but it's not going to be enough. We got to finish the job militarily, probably taking out some of the leaders as well with the intelligence services, Mossad, CIA. And it looks to me like you basically agree with that we have more military work to do.
Yeah, I do. So, when the ceasefire came around, at first I was a little bit worried that we were stopping the fighting when we were clearly defeating them, and it was letting them off the mat. And then I watched what President Trump did with that, and it was brilliant. What he did is he steamed a bunch of Navy destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz, which couldn't have gone through without being attacked while the combat was going on, which he used then to implement this blockade, which is actually crushing the Iranian economy. And he also used it to rearm and reload. We now have double the combat power in the Gulf region that we had at the start of the war. So those were two very good things. And also, by the way, he successfully circumvented the War Powers Act because he was able to report to Congress that the combat had stopped. And so now, if he starts it again, it's a new clock ticking on the War Powers Resolution. So three major benefits of the ceasefire. But the ceasefire is a pause, not an end. And we had not finished the job of eliminating the Iranian military capacity. We were sort of on the 20-yard line, maybe the 10-yard line, but we hadn't gone into the end zone in terms of leaving that. Now, there's two ways to end it. One way to end it is the Iranians capitulate and give us what we ask them. They capitulate, they give us the nuclear dust, they had dismantled their ballistic missile capabilities, sort of like what Libya did in 2004 with the Bush administration, when they allowed the U.S. to come in and cart up all of the nuclear dust or nuclear material and send it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and dismantled their ballistic missiles. So that's one way to end it. But if the Iranians don't seem, after we're now entering week 4 of the ceasefire, they don't seem to be moving in that direction. So the only other way to have a decisive victory is to finish the job militarily. And, like a great White House, you and I have both been to the 4th of July fireworks in the South Lawn of the White House. It always ends with the biggest barrage of fireworks is at the very end. And we need that final minute of fireworks in Iran to finish off their regime. And then, he needs about 14 days to do that, Larry. And after 14 days, he can declare victory. We don't need an agreement from the Iranians because we will have accomplished all of our military objectives, and we can keep the blockade in place and keep crushing them until they cry uncle.
That last point is so interesting, the agreement, quote unquote, or the deal, quote unquote. I mean, to me, the deal is President Trump tells whoever, some Iranian leader who's still around, whether it's Bahidi or whomever. He says, take out a blank sheet of paper, please, and write this down. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's unconditional surrender. The idea that we're going to negotiate with them, I just don't think that's a very good idea. Now that the word deal has many different meanings, but look, I'm for Ulysses S. Grant. He said unconditional surrender with Robert E. Lee. And Grant persuaded Lincoln that that's the only way you can do it. And, ditto after World War II. I mean, that's why I call it unconditional dictation. That's how this has to end. Now, I don't know if it'll end that way. You right here, and you're right. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' hardline commander, Ahmad Bahidi, has consolidated power. He's calling the shots. He's a dead ender. There'll be no deal as long as he remains in power. You're probably right about that. I mean, he's an evil guy. Maybe they're just going to have to take him out, Mark. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution. But, Trump's he's got red lines on nuclear capability. I don't believe he'll let anybody cross those red lines.
I don't either. And, you could say that we cut a deal with Japan on the deck of the USS Missouri, and that would be technically true. But it was surrender, and that's what we need. And that's why he hasn't gotten a deal yet, is because he's holding out for that. He's not actually negotiating his key principles. He wants them to irrevocably give up their nuclear program, and their ballistic missiles and their terror infrastructure to spread terror throughout the Middle East. Because he doesn't want to have to come back and do this in a few years, and he doesn't want to have a situation if another weak president like Joe Biden is ever elected, that they can take advantage of that. So he understands that this is the most important thing he's done as president in both of his terms. But you and I both know him. He likes to call himself a deal junkie. He likes the deal, right? And so he'd love to do this as a deal, because for him, a deal is the ultimate validation and success. But sometimes the best deal makers know that the best deal is no deal, and you just impose your will on the other side without their consent. So I don't care how he does it. First of all, I have no fear that he's going to capitulate it anyway. Because if he wanted to do that, he would have done it already. He's in no hurry to end this, because I think he senses correctly, and we discussed this on your show on Fox Business this week, that this actually could be a sleeper issue in favor of the Republicans in the midterm election.
Yes.
The key to that being a sleeper issue and a success and a positive is a decisive victory.
By the way,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah. But Mark, on that point, and thank you for reminding us. I mean, I went through that Harris-Harvard poll. Yeah. That showed, and it's a good poll. It's, the R's and D's are 50-50. It's not a phony, left-wing media poll. Yeah. People are supportive of what President Trump is doing. 70% plus, Marc Thiessen. Those numbers shocked me when I first saw them. And I had Mark Penn come on with Reince Priebus last night. But yeah, the newspapers are wrong. The legacy media is wrong. The country's behind Trump. They understand a nuclear Iran is a catastrophe. They get it. Yeah. They absolutely get it. And it's going to be, I believe it's a sleeper issue when the dust clears and they're finished off. Boy, oh boy. But can I ask you something else that is very important? The issue, I'm reading different people saying, well, we must reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, that's, probably so. I get that. Yeah. But that probably comes along with the next round of military combat, doesn't it? Isn't all of it? You can't do one without the other.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know that that's right. I'm not a military expert, but it just seems like that's the sort of common sense position. They go together.
Yeah, I think they possibly do. So can I address the poll first?
Yes,
for
sure.
Just 1 second?
Sure. Yeah,
so
yeah.
What I think is really interesting, because there are polls, the Washington Post poll shows that only 36% of Americans support the military action. Mm-hmm. And there are a number of polls that show that. And I think that's because they're after Iraq and Afghanistan, people are like, what, war in the Middle East again? I'm not sure this is a good idea. I don't know if we can win, and all the rest of it. But then when you go into that poll that the Harvard-Harris poll, on all the fundamental underlying principles, they absolutely agree with Trump. We can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Iran poses a threat to the United States. It needs to be disarmed. And when they ask, should Trump compromise on his kid, they support all of the negotiating principles that he's laid out in terms of they have to give up their nuclear weapons, they have to give up their support for terror, they have to, all that. And something like 66% say he shouldn't compromise at the negotiating table. And they say that strikes are justified, and they say that the blockade is justified. So what that means to me is, and my reading of trying to bring all those things together, is that people are cautious about this and a little worried, but they support him on the underlying principle, which means that if he can deliver a decisive success, the support for the whole thing will rise dramatically, right? And so I think the key to this being a positive politically, though he's doing it knowing it's not yet, and that's statesmanship. But the key to turning this into a positive is a decisive victory. It can't just sort of peter out. And we can say, well, yeah, we set them back, 80%. No, we have to set them back 99%. And we have to have achieved our objectives. And we have to open the Strait of Hormuz. We have to do all these things to show that it's a decisive win, that it was the right decision. And then the support will come, because even Democrats in that poll, in the Harvard-Harris poll, think that the president is right on the issues. So I think he needs to do that. On your question about the Strait, there's two. It's a chicken and egg thing, right? My preference would be to restart the bombing and use and reduce their firepower, and then open up the Strait. And I think it has to end up with the Strait being open, and then you open up for everybody but Iran, which is the reverse of what Iran was doing in the start of this, right? And we have military plans to do both of those things. The other way to do it is to open up the Strait, which we can do. And then if the Iranians fire at us, and, that's challenging the only card they have to play and taking it away, then that gives us the reason to go back, and then they started it again. So, it's a
little clever, that one. Little too clever.
Too clever in my view.
Yeah.
But either way, I think this ends up with us. I think where we're going is we're going to open up the Strait, and we're going to have major combat again, and we're going to have that final fireworks flurry at some point. And by the way, that'll get what is the resistance to the deal? It's body and these dead enders. So kill them.
Yes. Yeah.
Take them out.
Yes.
Let's start the second round of strikes the way we started the first, with a major leadership strike.
We know where they live. We have their cell phones. That's what he told the president of Afghanistan.
Certainly the Mossad does.
They're not going to make it.
And then, Larry,
bye, sweetie.
One more thing.
I'll see you later. They're not going to make it home that night. That's what's going to happen. I don't mean to joke about it. It's serious business, but that's the bottom line. So, Mark, when you look at, Peter Doocy was interviewing him at the presser yesterday. He got his last, he didn't say exactly, but it sounded like the last, quote, offer from Iran was highly insufficient. And that's what makes me think he's now leaning to finish, let's let Cooper and CENTCOM finish what they set out to do, 14 more days to go, et cetera, as you've written, General Keane written too. It just sounded like that. And we're probably very close to that point. I think he doesn't like to be frustrated for long. He doesn't. I know him. I mean, you know what? If you keep bucking him and you keep bucking him, he's going to take an action. And I think it wouldn't be surprised me if it weren't this week.
I agree with you 1,000%. And also, by the way, did you see the reaction in the villages yesterday when he talked about this? it was the biggest applause line.
Right.
When he said Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, the biggest applause line.
Right.
This is going to be a refrain on the stump in the fall for him. But I'll tell you that the final piece of this that we still need to work on, Larry, is let's say the Iranians don't capitulate. We open up the strait in whatever order. We open up and we do the final flurry of bombs. All of the progress we've made is reversible if this regime remains in place. We need a free and democratic Iran to come up. We need Iranian people to rise up and take back their country. That's not a military objective. That's not something that we're going to do by military means. But there's, the way I look at it is this: the Trump doctrine has disarmed the Iranian regime, and now we need to implement the Reagan Doctrine to bring down the regime. And the CIA needs to come up with a plan to support the Iranian opposition in the same way that we supported Solidarity in the 1980s in Eastern Europe, the way we supported Václav Havel and Charter 77 in Czechoslovakia, the same way, and possibly with arms, the way we supported the Contras in Nicaragua, and we supported the UNITA in Angola and all the freedom fighters around the world. We can bring there's two ways to bring down a regime. There's the way we tried to do it in Iraq, which nobody wants to do anymore, just sending lots of troops in, or you could do it the way Reagan did it during the Cold War, which is to undermine them from within with covert operations. And so I think to lock in all the gains that Trump has made, we've got to find a way to end this regime. Because if the regime survives, the reason why they're not giving in to the blockade is because all they care about is survival. They don't care about the Iranian people. They don't care about the economic pain. They don't care about anything. As long as they survive, they think that they live to fight another day, and they'll wait for a weak president to come in and reverse everything. There's
a second army. I mean, this is what I don't understand. There's a so-called regular army, draftees. It's not the ILGC, not the crazies. And I keep thinking that CIA, Mossad, etc. must be in touch with them. They have leaders. They have generals. I mean, they're more part of the people, if you will. They're, and I don't. It's the Revolutionary Guard that owns the businesses. They're running a mafia operation. They're running a Mexican cartel operation, and they put the stuff offshore, which Scott Besson is now trying to freeze. Or just take back. But there's a whole 350,000, Marc Thiessen. That's the number that I've seen. There's got to be something there that's promising to get rid of the ILGC regime.
I agree with you.
There's got to be something. I just keep waiting for it to surface.
Yeah, it can be done. It's what the CIA did. I mean, we've got the muscle memory because we brought down communism.
Right.
We brought down worldwide communism. 400 million people were liberated at the end in 1989 through 91 in the end of the Cold War. And by the way, it would not be the first time we overthrew a regime in Iran. The CIA overthrew most of that.
That is true.
So we've got some muscle memory here that we can exercise if we just have the will to do it.
In the 50s, you're right. Marc Thiessen, terrific stuff. Fox analyst, and just goes to show you the Washington Post has a little bit of talent stashed away someplace or other. You're terrific, buddy. Thanks for helping us. Talk soon. Folks, I'm Kudlow. We're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.